Hello there everyone, and welcome. So as I've said before, I would do a video about my arms collection. It's not that big at the moment, so I will also be including replica weapons and other stuff. But we'll start off with the antique ones, and I will also later on, once I have time, to make one about my uniforms and historical clothing stuff, which you have been requesting. So yeah, but right now let's take a look at the weaponry. So what we got right in front of us here is it's a Swedish percussion capped pistol from about 1820 to 1830. It's manufactured by Husqvarna, which probably doesn't say anything to anyone else, but in Sweden that's sort of they've made basically, I think they probably throughout the years they've probably manufactured everything you can possibly imagine. But this is a pistol that was made there. So yeah, I actually had this one, and I showed it to the weapons expert at the Antiques Roadshow. It wasn't anything special, but I thought I mentioned that I actually brought it there and showed it to him. As you can see, it's not really a really good example. It's missing its ramrod, and it's been replaced, and they put a bit of wood there and put in two nails. Stuff, you can see the wood has a few dents here and there, but it's one of my first things sort of I bought, um, and I rather enjoyed it. It's just cool little pistol. It's pretty cheap, so why not? And the actual percussion lock is working. Let's see if I can put it close up to the mic here, and we can. And it moves into two stages. So the first one, I guess, is for when you actually put the little cap on there, and you can't press it, so it's a safe. And then when you pull it up into the second mode, you're ready to fire it. So yeah, it's a small little pistol. It's pretty hard for me to hold it in my hand. Well, not hard, but sort of the two bottom fingers there sort of have to cram on there just at the end. But yeah, I guess I can hold it pretty comfortable. But it's a rather small pistol, which is I guess would be good for traveling around, and you just need that little deterrent against someone. It's not really done for dueling, if everyone, probably someone thinking that maybe. I've been looking at dueling pistols, which would be rather cool to own, but haven't decided on anything yet. So yeah, there we go. We've gone through that pistol. Let's move on to the next item. And so we've moved on to the next piece, which I think a few will recall this sword, because it goes with the artillery uniform. Well, it does and it doesn't. Here we can see the artillery uniform. The artillery uniform, as you can determine by the stars, that it is an officer uniform. Although this sword is not actually for officer, it's just for the rankers, or the normal, I guess, enlisted men you would call them. So it's not for NCOs or anything like that, and would be carried by the artillery personnel. Been looking for an officer sword, but so far I haven't found one. I haven't. When I said I've been looking, it's not like I've been doing it very actively, but I've kept an eye out for that. This sword is from 1889, and yeah, I don't know that much to say about it. Right now, actually, you can see it's rather dark. The scabbard is rather dark. Well, I actually polished it up a bit, not too much as to damage it, but just a bit, because when I've been showing it around, they've been holding their let's see if the picture comes just in between. You can see those two sort of bands going across there. They've been holding there, and you can see it's extra dark there. So I've just been polished it up in there, so it looks a bit nicer. It's also a bit easier to read the text or the stamped in numbers on one of the bands there. So yeah. I think, if I recall correctly, I was going to possibly bring this one to the Antiques Roadshow, but what brought instead was a Chinese dagger. Or Chinese, well, I thought it was a Chinese sort of dagger. It turned out to be a sword. It was a very short sword. Early 1900s. I do not have that one anymore, so I cannot show it, and I don't think I have any pictures of it. But yeah. Yeah, there's not much more to say about it, so let's go over to the next one, shall we? And so here we are for the next sword. This is, I think I've showed it a bit in one of the Legil videos, although probably hard to see up in that little square in the corner. But this is a heavy cavalry sword used by the French cavalry during the Napoleonic Wars. If you played the Napoleonic Wars, you might recognize it because it's in the game, and I think it's used by most of the heavy cavalry units in Napoleonic Wars. It's carried by Napoleon, the Napoleon character in the game, and by the cuirassiers, the dragoons. Yeah, I think it's those units. Might be someone else, some other units, can't think of. Anyways, so there it is. It was manufactured, just this model. I've actually had trouble putting sort of a time when it was manufactured. It's usually rather easy. It's only sharpened on one side of the blade, the other one is flat. And on that flat bit, they usually write out, so they write out where it was manufactured and what year. And so I can read all the text there up until it comes to the year, and then it goes 1, 8, 1, and then I can't read the last one. So I'm guessing from what I've seen, looking at the different sort of markings and how it's been sort of produced, not produced, but how it's the layout, the design of it. I'm guessing that it is from sometime during 1810 to 1815 is the year of manufacturing of this, but I can't really say for certain when exactly. It says they did produce these after the war, but then for the restoration, so for the king, and then what they did back on the back there, where you can read out where they was manufactured, they put royal instead of imperial, and so in this one it says imperial, so it was manufactured during Napoleon's reign. But it was they probably used them afterwards, and yeah, I don't know that much more about it. Since haven't really. It's really hard to try to get information on just how it is, because there's so many different variables and it's sort of hard to look at. And I was just sitting down with a mate and we were going through the different stuff, like, oh, look at this, well, this detail would indicate, and the end there on the scabbard, does that look like that? It's rather corroded there on both the end of the scabbard and the end of the sword. There's a few details there on the end of the scabbard, like could tell you sort of when was the scabbard manufactured. As I said earlier, that it was in between 1810 and 1815, but it's most likely sort of towards the end, so maybe 1814 to 1815, somewhere around there. So just sort of before the end there. But I'm still working on it, trying to figure it out. But it's pretty darn cool to own a sword that was actually, hopefully then, carried during the war, the Napoleonic Wars. So yeah, I think that's all we have to say about this one. Can't think of anything else, so let's go over to the next weapon. And here we are for the next one. It's actually two of them. These are infantry. It's infantry cutters, Infantry Cutter. Then also Swedish swords. That comes from 1856. In 1856, they issued a statement. They issued basically an order that all infantrymen would carry a sword. And so this is what they got. Sort of a Swedish, what did they call it in Napoleonic Wars? They call it what's it called? A butter knife. It's basically a butter knife. It's not a very long blade. It's a bit curved, as you can see here, so I'm guessing that it would be probably pretty good in sort of tight quarters, maybe. Not sure really what to say more about these. I've got two of them. It's kind of interesting actually. I've got two of them. One of them, the one above, has been very like worked on. So it's been like polished a lot and it's been grinded down quite a lot. You can't see it right here, but if you would turn them around, sort of at just before you hit the cross guard here on the blade, you would see a symbol or a stamped in P on one of them, and on the other one it's been grinded down so much you can't actually see that. Also, it's been grinded down quite a lot, so you can see it's rather hard, I think, by these pictures to see, but the top one is actually quite a bit smaller than the one below, just because it's been grinded down so much, and when you hold them you can clearly see the difference. And I think that it looks so much better on the one below because you can see the history in a sort of a way. So it's sort of been manhandled, the one above, by someone who might not have thought so much. They're pretty cheap swords to get, and is likewise with the pistol. It's one of the first like swords I bought because it was so cheap, and I bought two of them because my plan was to sort of cross them and hang them on the wall, which I haven't because I don't have any room on my wall. Someday I might. So yeah, infantry cutters, they came with leather scabbards, and if you have the leather scabbard, it obviously increases the price. But usually it's really hard to get those that match the sword, for a number of reasons that should possibly be obvious, but decay and so on, and just wear and tear compared with, as we saw, the other ones, the early ones, the two swords I have before this that had steel scabbards. But it's pretty interesting swords, piece of history. So yeah, not a lot to say more about these. Any questions, just put them down in the comments and I'll answer them. Now the next one I will show is a musket. I don't actually know anything about it, but we can take a look at it. So let's go ahead and do that. And so here we are with that musket I was talking about. Um, you can see there on the, as I said, I don't really know anything about it. I'm guessing it's Swedish, and that's about it. You can see there it says 1893, but I think that's actually a manufacturing number rather than an actual year of manufacture. So it's sort of every part should have 1893 put on them. So I don't think it was actually manufactured in 1893, which would be rather late for a percussion capped musket. Because by this time, of course, they had a lot of other uh, rifles, and so this would be rather useless. But it's a very nice musket. Um, it's very nicely done. There's some bits. The ramrod is probably not original. Also, the sort of the holdings there for the ramrod is probably not original either. But most of the other stuff are. It's been a bit polished, but not to the point where, like with the two swords we saw before, where it's actually damaged. I think all the parts are original. I'm not so sure though. There's a few parts that look as though they might have been um, added on, and there's probably a few screws here and there that's been changed out. But as I said, I haven't really been able to find out much about it, more than I'm guessing that it is Swedish. But yeah, I saw it and I looked at the price. It's a musket. Why wouldn't I? So I bought it. So yeah, that's about that. So that's for all the the actual antique weaponry. So let's go on and look at the not at all antique weaponry, the replicas and so on. Okay, so here we are for the not antique swords. They're replicas, but they're all fully functional and made of good hard steel. So perfectly workable swords. So it's not like the katana there in the beginning. It's not like a mall katana. It won't bend if you cut anything. So yeah, a katana. Well, everyone sort of needs a katana, don't they? Anyone who collects swords need at least one of one sort or another. Then we saw the medieval sword. Not so much to say about it. It's medieval sword. Then we had the rapier of Gustav Adolphus, and then for the last one, it's a Carolean infantry sword, model 18. No, 18. I was 1685. That's what I meant. So there we go. That's the Carolean sword. I bought it because I'm building sort of on a Carolean kit. The katana I bought because I sort of made samurai outfit, which I will show later on sometime. And the medieval sword I use for my medieval sort of outfit. The Gustav Adolphus one, I sort of have it's more of a Renaissance one, but I usually carry that for that one. I don't really have a 1600s type stuff going on, but yeah, it's a rapier. So yeah, most of these bought to complement the clothing that I was either making or buying, because I like collecting stuff. And yeah, there's not a lot to say about them. Different swords, but they look nice and good function of them. So yeah, I've showed you now all the different things. There's a few things I haven't shown you, but it's like I have let's see, some bayonets, but they're not really that interesting, I think. But yeah, so this is my arms collection, and it probably take a little more time to make my video about the different uniforms and stuff, but it will be in similar fashion to this one, because the time it would take to switch in and out of the uniforms and tape it would take too long, so I will just use pictures and I'll talk over them, similar to this one. It's probably going to be quite a lot longer than this one because I've got a lot of stuff. But yeah, gonna see about taking some time and doing that. Hope you enjoyed this. Looking at swords, talking about it. There wasn't as much sort of information maybe as some might expect, historical information about the different stuff, but I think it was enough. If you have any questions about anything, just put it down in the comment section. I'll answer them. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and I will be seeing you for the next one. Bye!